Well, America, I wanted to turn to one of the men I have the greatest respect for in the House of Representatives when he comes under attack by Republicans and Democrats alike. He is a constitutional conservative. He's been in the House for some time. He's under constant attack. And that's Thomas Massie from Kentucky. Thomas Massie, what the hell is going on here?
We just shot ourselves in the foot is what's going on.
I'm watching this. We're really going to relitigate the speaker issue when the Democrats are literally destroying this country? And the House of Representatives has done more right now than any other body we have to take this guy on, Biden and the Democrat Party. And you have 8 members, including Nancy Mace, who thinks McCarthy's too conservative. You have 8 members who join Hakeem Jeffries, who orders his Democrats, and they go right down the line to oust McCarthy. We have 8 members who are going on. We have $33 trillion in debt. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And there's the biggest cut in my lifetime, 30% being offered, a 30% cut in domestic discretionary spend. You've been there a while. Have you ever had a proposal like that before?
We've never had a proposal like this. And let me tell you, I'm not saying this as an excuse, but just to tell you how long our odds are up here. We're in control of 1/3 of the government by a 1% majority. And we have been putting bills on the floor. We have been passing bills. I'd love to litigate some of the claims that were made and have been made publicly about this January deal because I was in the room helping negotiate that deal. And let me tell you one thing I didn't get a chance to say in my speech on the floor, but I'd love to say it on your show. There's supposedly this religion against any kind of continuing resolution whatsoever by the rebels. I use that term affectionately when I call somebody a rebel, but in this case, they're not being very helpful.
I'm sorry, I call them anarchists. Go right ahead.
Well, in January, part of the deal with Kevin McCarthy for him to become Speaker was a CR at 98% if we didn't get the 12 bills done. That was baked into the deal. And so now they're acting like any kind of CR. By the way, the CR that he put on the floor was at 92%. An 8% cut across the board. It was a 30% cut to everything but military, but on average an 8% cut. And what he had agreed to in January was a CR at 98%. So he exceeded the January deal when he put that CR on the floor. And there are people who said they voted against it because they've got some religion against, funding the government for a little bit of time so we can finish our job. And I want to remind your listeners that, I'm not out in the news that much, so they may not know who I am, but I'm the guy who came to Washington, D.C. during COVID on March 27, 2020, and made all of these folks show up and vote on the CARES Act. And they hated my guts. That was $2 trillion of Nancy Pelosi spending. You were with me, Mark. I remember it. But the president was against me, called me up and screamed at me.
That was President Trump.
Yeah, President Trump screamed at me, said he would work against me, said I should be thrown out of the party for merely...
And I said, absolutely not. I support this man. Somebody's talking about the debt. Now, let me ask you something, Congressman Massie.
Yeah.
Did you have support from Matt Gaetz? Just yes or no?
No.
I've never heard these guys talk about the debt with such a passion before. Have you? Honestly.
I have no. That's the funny thing here. By the way, Matt Gaetz is a friend. I have campaigned for him, but I had support. I don't want to single him out. I had support from nobody, zero. If I so much as went to the bathroom while I was sitting, it left the floor to go to the bathroom, nobody would take my position at the microphone to demand a recorded vote 3 years ago when the CARES Act came up. Mm-hmm. That's $2 trillion, and now they're saying they're vacating Speaker McCarthy over $100 billion. I'm like, where were you when there was the CARES Act? But anyways, I was also a co-author of the motion to vacate John Boehner. I'm the only member still serving who co-sponsored and co-authored the motion to vacate John Boehner. Never voted for John Boehner. Never voted for Paul Ryan. And yet I can tell you this motion to vacate Speaker McCarthy is a horrible idea. He did something that Paul Ryan or John Boehner would never think to do. He put 3 of us, Chip Roy, Ralph Norman, and myself, on the Rules Committee. He gave us a blocking position on the committee that's known as the Speaker's Committee so that we could not just watch and make sure they weren't screwing the entire GOP conference by changing the rules, but so that we could steer that committee. And we have been on that committee. We've made sure there are over 500 amendments that have gotten a vote since this summer on the appropriations bills. And you can't tell me there's not regular order and he hasn't been trying to do 12 separate bills, because I'm on the committee that brings all that stuff to the floor. And just one final thought, the people who wanted to vacate Kevin, they're demanding two things that can't simultaneously be satisfied. They're demanding regular order and an open, transparent process, while at the same time they want a predetermined outcome. You can't guarantee both, and Kevin never did.
And what you mean by that, I want the public to understand, is you can pass 12 appropriations bills tomorrow, but they won't be what we want. That's the problem. You can pass whatever number of 12 appropriations bill and have regular order, but you can't ensure, as Congressman Massie's saying, that they're going to do what you say they might do or they can do. This is part of my problem. I heard Gates up there, and among other things, he says, well, great, you guys passed the greatest border security bill in our history, but the border's still open. Now, last time I checked, the Senate has to be involved, the president has to be involved. The House of Representatives isn't the parliament. They don't control everything. Is that correct?
That is correct. And what Speaker McCarthy promised in January as a condition of becoming Speaker was to try. He never said he would force, that he could make Joe Biden sign a law or that he could get Chuck Schumer to pass it. He said he would try. And I believe he has tried. And on the debt limit deal, which so many people are upset about, I was in all the negotiations in January, and Speaker McCarthy promised a lot of things, but I don't ever remember him promising anything in exchange for raising the debt limit. And Chip Roy may disagree, but I've told my colleagues who were in that room, I said, I wish we had thought to get him to promise us something in exchange for raising the debt limit, but we didn't think to do that. And so one of the reasons they wanted to vacate him is they're still relitigating that in June. Which has a provision in there that may save our bacon. I got in that debt limit deal a 1% automatic cut that triggers in January and kicks in April if we haven't gotten the 12 bills done. Now, they'll move heaven and earth up here in the swamp to try and undo it. But that's signed into law by Joe Biden, a 1% cut if we can't get out of our own way by January.
It's my understanding, Congressman, that the vast majority, I just looked at numbers, the vast majority of the Freedom Caucus, which is the most conservative caucus in the House, is it not?
Yes. Although
the vast majority voted against vacating the chair.
That is correct.
In fact, the overwhelming majority voted against, including Lauren Boebert, including Scott Perry, including Chip Roy, including Byron Donalds, including Dan Bishop, of all people, including Paul Gosar, Andy Harris, Mary Miller, Ralph Norman. These aren't wimps. These aren't rhinos and neocons, are they?
They are not. They're the most conservative members of Congress. And some, I mean, Speaker McCarthy even put conservatives on the Appropriations Committee. Like, they've got a chance not just to amend these on Rules Committee or on the floor, but some of those conservatives have had a chance right there in the committees that are drafting the appropriations bills, and all of them voted for Speaker McCarthy.
But the knife that was handed Gates, which he fought hardest for, frankly, because I remember this, was the ability of one single member of the House to move to vacate the chair. And that's what he did, and in my view, whether you agree or not, that's what he was always going to do. Because you know what he says today? He's asked, could he back Scalise? Oh, yes. Could he back Emmer? Emmer's a liberal. Can he back Emmer? Yes. He says, I can back anyone, but just not McCarthy. Does that not tell you that it's pretty damn personal?
The reality is I don't think there is anybody up here in our entire conference who could satisfy the demands that my friend Matt Gaetz has made on Speaker McCarthy. Again, like trying to say, I want this outcome, but I also want an open process.
Then why is he willing to support all these other guys who are not even as conservative as McCarthy, quite frankly?
Because maybe he would vacate him the day they got elected. I don't know.
I think grave damage has been done to the party. That is, the conservatives in the party. I don't care about the rest of the end of the country, and I'm going to tell you why. And I wrote a whole book on this. The Democrat Party hates America. Hakeem Jeffries wanted McCarthy out because I think he thought he was fairly effective under the circumstances. It took these 8 people, including Nancy Mace, who doesn't think McCarthy helped her on gun control and women's issues, whatever the hell she means by that. And I think grave damage was done because the Democrats feel like now they have the wind at their back, and the average person, Congressman, isn't really involved in all this Washington stuff, and they're looking at this, and they're saying, you Republicans don't know what the hell you're doing. And even on the shutdown argument, they never really came around to one position. They had like 15 things flying around. And even when Gates kept speaking, I'm saying, what are you focused on, man? What is it that can be done that's not being done? Isn't that the bottom line?
I think there was a lot of damage done to the Republican initiatives here because now Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell are in charge over in the Senate, where there really is kind of a uniparty. I also think, as you know, like I said before, my hands aren't clean. I co-authored the motion to vacate John Boehner. I'm not against using it, but the problem here is he played this card when there was nothing really to litigate yet. I mean, maybe in 6 months, if we ended up with some giant omnibus that blew the budget again, I could be compelled to be with him. But we didn't even give him a chance to get this done. And, my friend Matt Gaetz says, well, you own McCarthy if you don't vote to vacate him. I argued in conference today, I see it more as a lease, and the lease isn't up yet. I don't own anything, but you own what happens now, because I think we could end up with a coalition government where some moderate Republicans cut a deal with the Democrats and they get some committee gavels like has happened in Texas and some other states. That's the nightmare scenario. I also think, and this is what I closed my speech with on the floor today, this is not just a referendum on Kevin McCarthy. This is a referendum on whether we should even try to do 12 bills, because Kevin tried to do 12 bills. He tried regular order, and now he's vacated. I'm worried that the next speaker will say, quaint notion. Yeah, forget that. We tried that once, and you saw what happened to Kevin, so we're not doing regular order anymore, and you're going to have to join a gang if you want to get anything. You either got to be in the
Who blocked those efforts to have 12 bills passed?
There's a lot of blame to go around. They were blocked this summer by, ironically, conservatives who were litigating the debt limit deal. They were upset about the debt limit deal. They were upset about the top line number was $100 billion off from what they said Kevin had agreed to, and so.
Wait a minute, $100 billion in a $5 trillion budget with a $2 trillion deficit?
Yes, and none of them were willing to fight like I was willing to fight on the $2 trillion CARES Act 3 years ago, because they didn't want the president screaming at them, even though that was Pelosi's bill. But there was a fight this summer, and I think some of those people would rather they hadn't fought then, because if they're being honest, it's everybody's fault. We should have moved on, quit litigating what the number was, because we always knew it was a negotiation with the Senate, and get these 12 bills out. But we were stuck this summer trying to get something on the floor that could pass, and we were continually defeated by my closest friends.
Yeah, the wonderful 8 is what you're talking about. I want to thank you, Congressman, for your intellectual honesty and your patriotism and your support of the Constitution and your efforts all along here. And we have to go, and I know you have to go, and good luck, and God bless you, sir.
Well, thank you, Mark, and thanks for getting the truth out, and thanks for backing me back when almost nobody did 3 years ago on the CARES Act.
You better believe it. Take care of yourself, my friend.